Hello, welcome back to our discussion about microbes in the environment. I am Giulio Mariotti. I'm in the Department of Oceanography and Coastal Science at LSU. So when we think about microbes in the ocean or in coastal water, we probably think of those that swim in the water column. Those are the microbes that make the water look green, and those create algal blooms or red tides. Those are the planktonic microbes. But microbes can also grow attached to surfaces. We call them benthic microbes, and if they are thick enough, they become biofilms. Here is an example of algae growing on a rock on a beach, but maybe you have seen the slime on pebbles on the bed of a river. Those will be benthic microbes. In coastal areas like Louisiana, these microbes grow on the surface of sediment, which often are very muddy. Here we can see an image of a marsh where in the interior the vegetation is gone and the mud is colonized by these microbes. You can see this brownish color are actually made of microbes. And on the right, there is mudflat, so it's a large extent without vegetation. And the brownish red color in the foreground, they are actually is made of microbes. So what are these microbes? They are most often a combination of diatoms or cyanobacteria. But here the important thing is that most of these microbes are photosynthetic. They are like plants on land. They use light to create new organic matter, to create new material. And that makes them very important for the food web. Like grass is eaten by herbivores, like cows, which is then eaten by big carnivores. In a coastal environment, these benthic microbes are primary producers or produce organic matter, which is then eaten by coastal herbivores like the sea snail, which is then eaten by small fish, which then can be eaten by big fish. So this is the fuel of one of the fuel of the food web. So ecologists have known this for a long time. We know that these benthic microbes are very important for ecology. But for a geomorphologist like myself, the interesting aspect is that these benthic microbes can help stabilize sediments. The microbes and the gel, the mucilage around it, make them extremely sticky, as you can kind of see from this image on the top left. And intuitively, if the sediment is more sticky, it's going to be harder to be resuspended by a process like tidal currents or waves, which mobilize sediment, and at the large scale is what is causing coastal erosion. Coastal erosion is a problem in many areas around the world, particularly in Louisiana. So the idea is that these benthic microbes could help produce resuspension and therefore reduce coastal erosion at a very large scale. So this has been relatively known, at least in the sedimentological realm. The question that I was interested in answering is the effect of eutrophication, which is the increase in availability of nutrients like fertilizer, the fact that this eutrophication has on benthic microbes and the ability to stabilize sediment. We know that too much nutrients can cause algal blooms or hypoxia and even loss in vegetation strength. But what about this particular ability of benthic microbes to stabilize sediments? Will it change if the amount of nutrients in the water increase, which is most likely due to certain human activities. So to answer this question, we did some control laboratory experiments. So we created a bed of mud, and we had some control test where we didn't have any microbes. And then in some other test, we added microbes and added different amount of nutrients to let them grow at different intensity with different properties. So the experiment looked something like that. We allow the growth of these microbes through time. So this is time from left to right over several weeks. And we did that for different amount of nutrients or eutrophication. And for each of these snapshots, we test the strength of the sediment with the microbes using an erosive device. So the results that we got are shown in this graph. Here on the y-axis, I'm plotting the critical shear stress, which is really a measure of how strong the sediment is. The larger the value, the stronger the sediment, the harder to be eroded, and likely less coastal erosion. So we did that as a function of time on our test containers. And for the abiotic case, which is the case without any microbes, you see that the strength of the sediment is pretty much constant, which is what you would expect. But if you add microbes and you'll give them enough time to grow, the strength of the sediment increases. Even with very little nutrients, it almost doubled. And adding even more nutrients, which is the high nutrients case, which is the green triangle, the strength of the sediment increases even further. So the conclusion is that these benthic microbes, the brownish stuff that grow on top of muddy sediments, help to stabilize the sediment and therefore might reduce coastal erosion. We found that adding nutrients, the condition that you get with eutrophication, might actually increase this ability to stabilize sediment. So it's almost one of the few positive outcomes of eutrophication. I think that very interesting directions are leveraging these properties of benthic microbes to reduce resuspension. So finding ways to promote or accelerate the growth of these benthic microbes, especially when there is no vegetation yet, as a way to reduce the resuspension of sediment and reducing coastal erosion. So this is the summary of the presentations in our series. Bye.